Hello everyone, welcome to another video on Woo English, the channel that teaches you English the natural and most efficient way. I hope you are ready for another story. Today's story, or the story that we chose for you today, is a B1 story. That means it's a story suitable for intermediate students who are not beginners and also not very advanced in English. So that means if you are an intermediate student or intermediate learner, this story is right for you. It will help you learn new vocabulary, new structures, new grammar. If you are a beginner, this story may be a little challenging for you, but that does not mean that you cannot listen to it. While listening to it, you will encounter new structures, new vocabulary. It will be a little challenging for you, but it will be pushing you to go to the next level. If you are, of course, intermediate or upper intermediate, meaning B2 or B3 or even C1, this story will feel very comfortable, but still it will be very convenient for you to listen to it because it will help you recycle and re-go through what you already know in English. The story we chose for you today is actually the story of thousands of people who decided to leave their countries and go to one Gulf city and one Gulf country to escape taxes. This is the story of Dubai, the place what we call in English a tax haven, where a lot of people go to escape paying high taxes in their countries. The story, of course, is linked to what is going on today, because now we know that the Gulf countries are under attack, and a lot of people who escaped their countries, went to the Gulf, are now questioning themselves, was the decision correct? So this is what we are going to do today. We are going to dive into an amazing story, learn some English, and at the same time, try to discuss what's happening in the world. Before we go into the video, of course, I would love to remind you that Woo English specializes in teaching you English through stories. We are the pioneers, the first channel to do this actually on YouTube, and we have been doing that since 2019. You are going to be learning 3 things on our video. You will be learning about what's happening in the world. You will be learning and training your listening skills because you will be listening to the story. And at the same time, you will also be training your reading skills because you will have the text right in front of your eyes. You will see how the words are written. You will see the grammar, the words right in front of you as you are reading and listening at the same time. So before we jump and go to listen to the story, I would love for you to first think about this question, because I will ask you this question around the end of the story. Do you think people who traveled and went to Dubai to escape taxes made a good decision? What do you think about this? Maybe think about it as you listen. And of course, before we go to the video, I would love to ask you to kindly support this video. Making these videos takes a lot of time, a lot of research, a lot of effort, and it's the work of a whole team here at Woo English. So it will be very kind of you if you can support with the simple act of clicking the like button, maybe sharing this video with someone you know will benefit from it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, if you are new to this concept of learning English through stories, make sure to subscribe, activate that bell icon. It will absolutely help you take your English to the next level. Let's go now and start our listening.
Chapter 1. 0. Absolutely 0. Every government in the world tells you the same story. Pay your taxes. Do your part. Contribute to the society that built. The roads you drive on, the schools you attended, the hospitals that were there when you needed them. It is a fair story. For most people, it is the only story they ever hear. Marco heard a different one. It is a Tuesday morning in Milan, October 2021. He is 41 years old. He is sitting at his kitchen table with a coffee that has gone cold, and a letter that he has read 3 times already. The letter is from the Italian government. It wants 47% of everything he earned that year. Not a small fee, not a contribution, nearly half of 12 years of work. 12 years of early mornings and late nights and clients who called on weekends and problems that never waited for a convenient moment. He reads the number one more time. He puts the letter down. He opens his laptop. What Marco finds that morning will change his life completely. He does not find a loophole. He does not find a trick or a scheme or something that will later require a lawyer and an apology. He finds a country where the tax rate on personal income is not 47%, not 30%, not 10%, 0. Absolutely 0. The United Arab Emirates collects no personal income tax. Read that one more time. No income tax. Not a reduced rate. Not a special exemption for certain people in certain situations. The number is 0, written into the system, protected by law, available to any person who chooses to make the UAE their home. For most people in the world, this sentence is almost impossible to believe. For people like Marco, it is the most important sentence they have ever read. Now think about what 0 actually means. Not as a concept, as a number, as a real, specific, life-changing number. In the UK, the top income tax rate is 45%. In France, it reaches 55%. In California, when you combine state and federal taxes, a high earner can lose nearly 60 cents of every dollar they make. Marco earned 4 million euros the year he received that letter from the Italian government. At 47%, that letter was asking for 1.88 million euros every year. Not once, every single year. For the rest of his working life. Move to Dubai. Keep the same business. Earn the same money. Keep all 4 million. Over 10 years, the difference is not thousands of euros. It is not even millions. It is a decision that changes the shape of an entire life. But the UAE did not build this system out of generosity. Generosity is not how cities in the desert become the financial capitals of the world. The UAE sits on some of the largest oil reserves on the planet. 4 decades, that oil funded everything: roads, hospitals, schools, government salaries. The state did not need money from its people. It needed something that oil cannot buy. People, the right people. Entrepreneurs who build companies that employ thousands. Investors who bring capital that builds industries. Innovators who attract other innovators. The kind of talent that transforms a small Gulf nation into a place the entire world watches and wonders about. 0 tax was not a gift. It was the most calculated invitation in the history of modern economics. Come here, keep your money, build something, and in return, help us build something bigger. 3 years later. It is now 2024. Marco is on his terrace in Dubai Marina. The sea below him is flat and silver in the early morning light. His coffee is hot. His company is growing. He is 44 years old now, and his life looks nothing like. It did at that kitchen table in Milan. And somewhere in Italy, a government is still waiting for money that will never arrive. Any intelligent person, he says quietly, would do exactly what I did. He is not wrong. He is also not alone. A single document, small enough to fit in a jacket pocket, powerful enough to change where a person belongs forever. Chapter 2. The Golden Visa. Imagine you are holding a key, not a metaphor, not a symbol, an actual key, small and cold in your hand, that opens a door that most people on earth will never find. Behind that door is not just a country, it is a life, permanent, protected, yours. The key has a name, the Golden Visa. For most of human history, belonging somewhere was simple. You were born in a place. That place was yours. Its passport was yours. Its laws protected you. Its problems were your problems. You did not choose it. Nobody asked you. It simply was. But the world changed. Planes made distance disappear. The internet made location meaningless. A person could run a company from a beach, manage investments from a terrace, build a global business from a laptop in a city they had never planned to stay in. The world became borderless. For everyone except the people who wanted to move. For them, the borders were still very much there. Before 2019, moving to the UAE was complicated in a way that's serious. People found unacceptable. Most residency permits were tied to employment. A work contract. A local sponsor. A company willing to put their name next to yours and take responsibility for your presence in the country. Lose the job. Lose the contract. Lose the right to stay. For a factory worker, this was manageable. For a person with $10 million in a bank account and a business they owned completely, it was absurd. Why would a wealthy, independent, self-sufficient entrepreneur agree? To tie their life to an employer they did not need? Why would anyone build a future in a place that could dissolve their right to be there with a single letter? The UAE understood this problem. Then it solved it. In 2019, the government created something new. A residency permit that belonged to no employer, required no sponsor, answered to no contract. It belonged to one person only, the person whose name was on it. The Golden Visa, 5 years or 10. Renewable, stable, permanent in. The way that serious people need permanence before they commit their money, their families, and their futures to a place. For the first time, a foreigner could stand in Dubai and say something they had never been able to say before. This is mine. The rules tell you exactly what kind of country the UAE is trying to build. Investors with 2 million dirhams to place in the economy. That is, roughly 500,000 US dollars. Entrepreneurs with approved business, plans, scientists, doctors, engineers with skills that most countries spend years trying to develop. Outstanding students, exceptional athletes, artists whose work carries cultural weight, and one category written in 2 words that say more than any policy. Document ever could. Exceptional talent. 2 words, deliberately broad, deliberately open, because the UAE is not only building a tax haven, it is building a country, and it is choosing its citizens the way a great company chooses its team. Not by accident, not by geography, by value. Sophia understands this better than most. She is 38. Brazilian. In 2021, she sold her financial technology startup in Sao Paulo for just over $8 million. She did not make that decision alone. Her daughter Clara was 9, years old at the time, and from the moment Sophia signed the papers, she was thinking about two futures at once, her own and her. Daughters. The morning after she signed, she did not call her mother. She called a relocation consultant in Dubai. She sits now in her home office on the Palm Jumeirah. Outside, the sea moves slowly in the afternoon light. Inside, two companies are running, both profitable, both growing, both untaxed. She speaks carefully, the way people speak when they have thought about something many times and want to get the words exactly right. In Brazil, opening a bank account takes 3 months. Registering. A company takes 6. Every step requires a form, a stamp, an office, a wait. She looks down at her hands. Here, I had my golden visa in 3 weeks. My company was registered. In 4 days. She does not say anything else for a moment, because 4 days does not need explanation. 4 days speaks for itself. In Brasilia, in Rome, in Paris, government officials are reading files about people like Sophia, watching the numbers, counting the names on a list that grows longer every month. They are not reading about criminals. They are reading about their best people, their builders, their innovators, their most ambitious and most valuable citizens, leaving legally, moving permanently, choosing a country that asked for them by name. The golden visa did not take these people. It simply made an offer that their own governments never thought to make. And the silence from those governments was answer enough. Day. You just never noticed that the background had changed. Chapter 3. Famous faces, new addresses. You already know them. You have watched them on screens, followed their companies, read their names in headlines, listened to their music, worn their brands, bought products they built from nothing into empires worth billions. What you did not know was this. The face was familiar. The address had changed. Nobody announces it. That is the first thing you notice when you start looking carefully. There is no press conference, no farewell interview, no front page, story about a departure. One day they are photographed at an event, in London or New York or Milan. And then, slowly, quietly, the location tags in their posts begin to shift. A sunrise over the Dubai Marina. A breakfast on a terrace with a skyline behind it that is not. Manhattan. A caption that says nothing about leaving. Nothing about taxes. Nothing about golden visas or 0%, or carefully calculated. Decisions made in private with lawyers and relocation consultants. Just the sun. Just the view. Just a life that looks, to the casual observer, exactly the same. Except it is 4,000 kilometers from where it used to be. February 2022. The world is watching Ukraine. Missiles, refugees, a European country burning on live television, while the rest of the world scrolls through the images in disbelief. But while the cameras pointed east, something else was happening. Something quiet, something fast, something that the financial press would only begin to write about months later. Wealthy Russians were moving, not hiding, not running in the dramatic sense that the word implies. Moving, deliberately and efficiently, the way people move when they have resources and a plan and an understanding of exactly how much time they have before the window closes. European governments were freezing assets, seizing yachts, closing bank accounts, cutting off access to financial systems that Russian. Money had flowed through freely for decades. The window was closing, and in Dubai, the phone lines to real estate agents had not stopped, ringing for 3 weeks. Within months, Russian buyers became the #1 foreign. Purchasers of property in the UAE apartments, villas, entire floors of glass towers purchased with cash. Fast decisions. No complications. Dubai did not create the crisis that sent them there. It simply kept its door open while every other door in the world slammed shut. But understand something important. The Russians were not the story. They were one chapter in a much longer book that had been writing itself for years before anyone was paying attention. Pick up your phone right now. Open any platform. Find a creator you follow. Someone with real money. Behind their content. A founder who turned their idea into an audience of millions. A trader. A consultant. A person whose entire professional life exists inside a screen and a camera and a Wi-Fi. Connection. Look at where they are filming. Look at the light. Look at the skyline. You will find Dubai more often than you expect. These are not people fleeing anything. They are not running from governments or avoiding justice or hiding behind clever lawyers. They are simply people who did a calculation and found that one city on Earth offered them something no other city could match. Keep what you earn. Live well. Build freely. And the sun shines 350 days a year. Some names are bigger than others. British entrepreneurs who built household brands. Tech founders whose companies trade on major stock exchanges. Athletes at the peak of. Careers worth hundreds of millions. Artists whose work fills stadiums and streams across 1 billion devices simultaneously. When the news broke that names like these had quietly moved there. Lives to Dubai, the reaction in certain capitals was not quiet. Politicians used the word loyalty. Journalists used the word betrayal. The people who left said nothing. They did not need to. Their silence from their new addresses was the loudest answer they could have given. One British entrepreneur agreed to speak. He asked that his name not be used. He is 52. He started his retail business at 28 in a rented office in Leeds. At his peak, he employed over 200 people across the UK. He paid, by his own careful calculation, more than £20 million in personal taxes over his career. He moved to Dubai in 2022. He sits now in a calm, well-lit apartment in downtown Dubai. Outside, the window, the Burj Khalifa rises against a sky so blue it looks artificial. People say we abandoned our countries, he says, but I gave my country 20 million pounds and 24 years of my life before. I made this decision. He looks at the window for a moment. At some point, you have to ask yourself an honest question, not a comfortable one, an honest one. He turns back. If the system allows you to do this legally, and you choose not to, what exactly are you staying for? Nobody in the room answers. Nobody can. Because the system did allow it. The system built the door. And every month, more people find it. More faces, more names, more fortunes quietly redirecting themselves. To a city that does not ask where you came from, only that you come. Nobody talks about is the part that is hardest to leave behind. Chapter 4. Sun, Safety, and Seriousness. Close your eyes. You are in London. February, 6:47 in the morning. The alarm goes off. Outside the window, the sky is the color of old, concrete. The kind of gray that does not brighten. The kind of gray that simply stays all day like a ceiling that forgot to be a sky. The train will be late. You already know this. You have stopped being surprised by it. Your coffee is ready. Your coat is heavy. Your day is long. Now open your eyes. This is not a story about weather, but it begins with weather. Because weather is the first thing people mention when you ask them why they left. Not taxes, not visas, not crime rates or bureaucracy or government efficiency. The sun. They talk about the sun the way people talk about something they did. Not know they were missing until the day it arrived and stayed. In Dubai, the sun is not a seasonal visitor. It lives there, 350 days a year. Warm and generous and present in a way that changes, slowly and permanently, the mood of a person who spent 40 years in. A country where summer lasts 11 weeks and apologizes for the rest. This sounds small. It is not small. Ask anyone who made the move. Ask them what they notice first, when. They go back to visit. They will tell you about the gray sky before. They tell you about anything else. But there is something in Dubai that matters more than the sun. Something that is harder to photograph and harder to explain and harder to understand until you have lived without it for long enough to know what it costs. It is the feeling of a city that works. Walk through downtown Dubai on any morning of the week. The roads are clean. Not clean because a special event is coming. Not. Clean because someone important is visiting. Clean because a decision was made years ago that this is simply how things are here. The metro arrives. Every time. At the time it said it would arrive. Not approximately, not usually, every time. In the hospital 2 streets away, equipment that European cities, placed on 5-year waiting lists, was installed and operational last year. The internet in a standard apartment runs faster than in most. Professional offices in Paris or Rome. The lights work. The water is cold when you need it cold and hot when you need it hot. This sounds like a very low standard. It is not a low standard. It is the standard that millions of people living in wealthy, developed, historically great cities have quietly stopped expecting. The standard they have replaced with a tolerance for dysfunction. So deep that they no longer notice it. until they move somewhere that does not tolerate it at all. Then there is the question of safety. It is 2 in the morning in downtown Dubai. A woman is walking alone, phone in her hand. No particular urgency. No looking over her shoulder. No calculation happening quietly in the back of her mind about which street is safer or how far she is from. Somewhere with other people. She is simply walking. In how many cities on earth is that sentence true at 2 in the morning? The UAE has one of the lowest crime rates in the world. Not low for the region. Not low for a developing country. Low by any standard. That exists anywhere. For families, this is not a detail. It is the entire decision. Sophia, the Brazilian entrepreneur from Chapter 2, says it better than any statistic can. In São Paulo, I drove a different car every day. She lets that sentence sit for a moment. Here, my daughter Clara walks to school. Nothing else needs to be said. Nothing else is said. But the reason that surprises people most is not the sun. It is not the safety. It is the speed. Dubai moves the way a serious organization moves when it has decided. That slowness is not a value, and patience is not a virtue. And the people it most wants to attract are people whose time is the most expensive thing they own. A business license in 24 hours, a bank account in days. Government services available on a phone application resolved before. A second cup of coffee is finished. In Italy, registering a new business takes an average of 11 days and requires a consultant who knows the system well enough to navigate it without losing weeks in the wrong office. In Brazil, the same. Process takes months. In France, a combination of administrative steps, legal requirements, and waiting periods that have not been updated since a world that no longer exists. In Dubai, it requires a phone and a clear morning. This is not convenience. This is a message. A message that says, your time has value here. Your ambition has value here. You are not a problem to be processed. You are exactly the person we built this for. For years, this combination was enough. The sun, the safety, the speed of a city that meant every promise it made and kept every one of them on time. It was enough to bring people from London and Milan and São Paulo and New York. It was enough to make them stay. It was enough to make them believe, with a confidence that felt entirely reasonable, that they had made the best decision of their lives. Then February came, and the sky over Dubai filled with something that was not sunlight. The people who built their lives on a promise of safety are about to find out what that promise is actually worth. Chapter 5. Is this fair? There is a classroom in Birmingham. 30 children, 8 years old, sitting in rows, learning to read, learning to count, learning to understand the world they were born into without choosing it. Their teacher has been here for 11 years. She arrives before anyone else. She leaves after everyone else. On. The third week of every term, she opens her own wallet and buys the supplies the school budget could not cover. The school budget runs out every year. It has run out every year for as long as she can remember. She does not know Marco. She has never heard of Sophia. She has never read about the golden visa or the 0% tax rate, or the private jets leaving Dubai in the early hours of a March morning. But their decisions have shaped her classroom, whether anyone admits it or not. This is the part of the story that the people in the glass towers do not talk about. Not because they are cruel, not because they do not understand it, because understanding it is uncomfortable. And discomfort is the one thing that money is very good at making: disappear. The numbers are not abstract. In the United Kingdom in 2023, the wealthiest 1% of earners paid approximately 29% of all income tax collected by the government. 29%. From 1% of the population. Read that again. 1% of people, paying nearly a third of everything the government uses to run a country, to pay teachers, to staff, hospitals, to repair roads, to fund the pension that arrives every month for people who worked their entire lives and now depend on a system they trusted to be there. When those people leave, they do not leave quietly. They leave loudly, in the only language that governments truly understand, in numbers. Every year, a Marco or a Sophia or a James lives in Dubai instead of London. The gap in that classroom grows a little wider. The teacher buys her own supplies again, and nobody connects the two things. But sit with the other side of this for a moment, because the other side deserves the same honesty. James is 44, British. He built his software company in a rented room in Manchester when he was 26 years old, with no investors, no safety net, and no certainty that any of it would work. It worked. Over 20 years, he employed more than 300 people, paid their salaries, paid their pensions, paid his own taxes without complaint. For 2 decades. He calculated once, late at night, what he had given. More than £15 million. To a government that never once called to ask if the money was being used well. He speaks now in the calm light of his Dubai apartment, without anger, without performance, with the particular quietness of a person who has thought about something for a very long time. I gave £15 million and 20 years before I made this decision, he says. I followed every rule, filed every form, left correctly. He looks at the window. At some point, an honest person has to ask an honest question, not a comfortable one. He turns back. Why am I paying for a system I no longer use? There is no easy answer to that question. There never was. Both things live in the same world at the same time. The teacher in Birmingham is real. Her classroom is real. The supplies she buys with her own money are real. James is also real. His £15 million are real. His legal, carefully considered decision to stop paying for a country he left is also real. You do not have to choose which one matters more. But you do have to hold both of them in your mind at the same time. That is where the real conversation lives. Not in newspapers, not in political speeches, not in the word. Betrayal, which politicians use when the honest word is loss. Here. In this space between two true things that do not fit, comfortably together, governments are not sitting still. In 2024, the G20 nations agreed on a global minimum corporate tax. rate of 15%. Italy introduced an exit tax for wealthy citizens who relocate abroad. Spain and France are building coordinated policies designed to make the golden visa calculation less attractive. The response is coming. Slowly, imperfectly, moving with the weight and reluctance of systems that were not designed for a world where a person can change their tax country in 3 weeks with a phone and a one-way flight. But it is coming. The question is not whether governments will respond. The question is whether they will respond in time, and whether the people they most want to keep will still be there when they finally do. The classroom in Birmingham is still full this morning. The teacher is already there. The supplies are running low. And somewhere above the Arabian Gulf, a private jet is beginning its descent into Dubai International Airport. A new name, a new face, a new address. The list grows longer. And the distance between that classroom and that jet does not get any smaller, not today. Then something happened that nobody in that jet had planned. Something that no tax calculation, no golden visa, no glass, tower above the marina had prepared them for. Chapter 6. The storm arrives. Every city has a moment. A single moment when everything it believed about itself is tested, not by a recession, not by a political crisis, not by the slow, manageable difficulties that cities absorb and recover from over years, by something faster, something that arrives without an appointment and leaves before. Anyone has finished processing what just happened. For Dubai, that moment had a date. The 28th of February, 2026. The night is warm. It is always warm in Dubai at this time of year. A soft, generous warmth that settles over the city like a promise kept. The marina is lit. The towers are lit. Somewhere below, a restaurant is full. And a hotel lobby is moving with the particular energy of a city that never truly decides to sleep. In his apartment on the 31st floor, Marco is reading. His phone is face down on the table. His coffee is hot. His life, by any reasonable measurement, is exactly what he designed it to be. Then, at 11:47 in the evening, his phone lights up. He does not look at it immediately. He will think about those few seconds for a long time afterward. The news comes in fragments, the way serious news always does. Not one clear headline, not one authoritative voice explaining. Everything in order, fragments, pieces, words that do not yet form a complete picture, but carry enough weight that the body understands something before the mind catches up. United States, Israel, Iran, strikes, tonight. Marco picks up his phone. He reads. He reads again. In the early hours of the 28th of February 2026, United States and Israeli forces launched coordinated strikes against Iran. The reoperation killed the supreme leader and dozens of senior military commanders in a single night. It was the most significant military action in the Middle East in a generation. By morning, every screen in every language in every time zone was carrying the same images: fire, smoke, officials speaking carefully into cameras with the measured tone of people who have prepared for this moment and are now living inside it. Think about the last time you watched breaking news and understood. Immediately, before the analysis, before the experts, before the headlines had settled into their final form, that something permanent had just changed. That morning felt like that. For the entire world. In the days that follow, the fire finds its edges. Or rather, it discovers that it does not have edges. Iran launches missiles and drones against Israel. Hezbollah joins. The war from Lebanon. Within 72 hours, the conflict has moved beyond. Two countries into something that requires a different word entirely, regional war. And the Gulf, which had watched so many conflicts from what it believed was a careful distance, is no longer distant from anything. On the 4th of March, sirens sound over Riyadh. Saudi Arabia intercepts waves of Iranian ballistic missiles aimed at its eastern region. The interceptions are successful, but the missiles were real. The sirens were real. In Qatar, every phone in the country receives the same message at the same moment, elevated threat level, remain indoors. Kuwait reports a drone strike on a residential building. 2 people are wounded. 6 power lines go down. The international airport is targeted. Each of these events, in any other year, in any other context, would have been the only story the world was talking about. But the world has too many stories now, and the next one is already happening. It is the UAE. The United Arab Emirates announces that its air defense systems are responding to an active missile and drone threat. That sentence. Read it again. Not Riyadh, not Kuwait City, not a country that the people in the glass towers had mentally placed in a category called elsewhere and far away and not here, here. The UAE intercepts 26 drones in a single day. 9 of them fall inside its territory. Explosions are heard in the center of Dubai. Small clouds of smoke rise above a residential neighborhood 2 kilometers from where families are having dinner. 9 drones. Inside the country, inside the city, in the apartments and penthouses and glass towers above the marina, phones light up simultaneously. Not news alerts, messages, person to person. The kind of messages that people send when they need to know that someone they care about is still there. Are you okay? Did you hear that? Where are you right now? Marco is on his terrace, the same terrace where he watched the flat. Silver sea on mornings when his life felt like the best decision he had ever made. The sea looks the same tonight. The city behind him does not feel the same. He sits for a long time without moving. Then he opens his laptop. He does not check his bank account. He opens a flight search, and the number he sees on the screen tells him, more clearly than any news report, exactly how afraid the people around him already are. This is the moment the promise breaks. Not the tax promise, not the visa promise. The oldest promise, the one that was never written in any document, because it did not need to be written. The promise that existed in the clean roads and the punctual metro and the warm mornings and the quiet certainty that this place had built itself specifically to be. The kind of place where certain things do not happen. That promise is open again. And for the first time since they arrived, the people in those towers are asking a question they never expected to ask. What happens now? Money answered that question before anyone else did. Faster. Then the news, faster than the governments, and the price of a single flight told a story that no headline could. Chapter 7. The Price of Panic. Money does not feel fear, but it behaves exactly as if it does. The moment danger enters a room, money is already at the door. Already moving. Already calculating the fastest route to somewhere. Safer, calmer, more certain. Money does not wait for confirmation. It does not wait for the second headline or the government statement, or the measured voice of an expert explaining that things are, broadly speaking, under control. It is already gone. It is the 1st of March, 2026. The sun is rising over Dubai International Airport. At the private terminal, the one that regular travelers never see. The one where the corridors are quieter and the ceilings are higher. And the service moves with the particular efficiency reserved for. People whose time is billed by the hour, something unusual is happening. It is full, not busy. Not moderately active, full in the way that speaks before anyone opens their mouth. 3 men in dark suits stand beside a Gulfstream G700. One is on. The phone. His voice is low and fast and carries the tone of a person solving a problem that was not supposed to exist. Another is checking a screen, scrolling through information with his thumb, his face giving nothing away. The third is simply staring at the runway, the way people stare at things when a decision has already been made. And the only thing left is waiting for the engines to confirm it. They are not unusual this morning. Every private terminal in the UAE looks exactly the same. Before the war, chartering a private jet from Dubai to London cost approximately $80,000. By the morning of March 1st, that number had doubled. By the afternoon, it had tripled. By the evening, certain routes were no longer expensive. They were simply gone, fully booked, unavailable for days ahead, reserved by people who had looked at the smoke above their residential neighborhood and made a calculation that took approximately 4 seconds. Think about what it means to pay $300,000 for a single flight. Not to a destination that required it. Not across an ocean or to a remote corner of the world where no other option existed. From one major city to another. In a single afternoon, without negotiating. That is not a travel decision. That is the sound of fear in a language that only the very wealthy can speak. But the jets were only the beginning. Open any property platform in the UAE in the first days of March 2026. And you would find something that had never appeared in Dubai's reel. Estate market before. Urgency. Penthouses listed below their purchase price. Marina apartments with notes that said available immediately. Villas on the Palm Jumeirah. Priced not to attract the best offer, but to attract the fastest one. The sellers were not panicking in the dramatic sense of the word. They were being practical. Coldly, efficiently, expensively practical. They needed the transaction completed before their flight. One property consultant working in downtown Dubai received 14 calls before noon on March 2nd. Every caller asked a version of the same question. Not, what is my apartment worth? Not, what is the market doing? How fast can you sell it? 14 times. Before noon. James did not call. He sat in his apartment on the 34th floor and did not open a flight. Search and did not call a property consultant and did not send the message that half the people in his building were sending to the people in their networks. He watched. The streets below were quieter than he had ever seen them. The marina held fewer boats. The city looked from this height exactly as it always had, but it felt different. He knew it felt different. He sat with that feeling for a long time and let it tell him what it actually was. Not fear, not regret, uncertainty. The particular uncertainty of a person who built their life on a calculation and is now being asked by events beyond anyone's control to run that calculation again. I won't pretend I wasn't scared, he says. Everyone was scared. The people who say they weren't are not being honest. He pauses. But I watched how the UAE responded. The air defenses worked. The government communicated. The city kept functioning while other capitals were in complete chaos. He looks at the window for a moment. Dubai did not stop. It absorbed the shock and kept moving, and I decided that was enough for me to keep moving with it. Not everyone reached the same conclusion. In the first 2 weeks of March 2026, an estimated 12,000 high net worth individuals left the UAE, some temporarily, some permanently. Private school attendance dropped sharply. Luxury. Restaurants recorded their worst bookings since the pandemic. The streets of downtown Dubai, which had always carried the restless energy of a city that believed deeply in its own future, became noticeably, measurably, undeniably quieter. The numbers told a story that no press release could soften. The city that had promised safety was now counting the cost of a promise that reality had made complicated. And in government offices across Europe, in London and Paris and Berlin and Rome, officials studied the data with a mixture of genuine concern and something else. Something quieter. Something that mixed badly with their professional responsibility. To appear neutral. It felt like vindication. One European finance minister, speaking privately to a colleague and not knowing the conversation would later be reported, said something. That captured the mood of an entire continent watching from a careful distance. They said it was permanent, he said. A long pause. Permanent until the first explosion. When the dust begins to settle and the flights start returning, and the city starts breathing again, one question remains. The question this whole story was always moving toward. Chapter 8. What happens next? Every story wants an ending, a final page, a closing image, a voice that tells you what it all meant and leaves you with something clean and certain to carry away. This story will not do that. Because this story is not finished. It is happening right now. Today. While you are reading these words, somewhere in the world a person is opening a laptop and searching for the golden visa. Somewhere above the Arabian Gulf, a private jet is beginning its descent. Somewhere in a government office in London or Paris or Rome, an official is staring at a spreadsheet and trying to understand where the money went. The ending has not been written. But the questions are clear. The first question is about people. Will they come back? Some already have. In the weeks following the panic of early March 2026, the data began to shift, slowly, carefully, without the confidence of the original. Arrival, but with something that looked, cautiously, like a return. Private school registrations began recovering. Restaurants refilled. The marina found its boats again. The streets of downtown Dubai, which had gone quieter than anyone had ever seen them, began to carry the particular noise of a city remembering what it believed about itself. Dubai kept moving. It always keeps moving. That is perhaps the most important thing this city has ever communicated to the world. Not its tax rate, not its visa system, not its gleaming infrastructure or its punctual metro or its 350 days of sun. Its refusal to stop. But the second question is harder to sit with. What if the next time is worse? The war of February 2026 showed the world something it had spent years carefully avoiding seeing. The Gulf is not separate from the region that surrounds it. It is connected to it. By geography that cannot be redesigned. By politics that cannot be wished away. By the simple and uncomfortable fact that you cannot build a city of glass towers in the middle of a volatile neighborhood and expect the volatility to respect your borders. 9 drones fell inside UAE territory. 9. The air defenses worked. The government communicated. The city functioned. All of this is true, and none of it is small. But 9 drones fell. And the question that nobody in a glass tower wants to answer, honestly, is this. Next time, what is the number? The third question belongs to the countries they left. Europe is not standing still. In 2024, the G20 agreed on a minimum corporate tax rate of 15%. Italy introduced an exit tax. Spain and France are building coordinated policies designed to make the calculation that brought Marco and Sophia and James to Dubai a less attractive one. The response is real. It is slow. It is imperfect. It moves with the heavy, reluctant machinery of democratic governments that were designed for a world where people stayed where they were born and paid their taxes where they worked and did not spend Tuesday morning researching residency. Permits in Gulf cities they had never visited. But it is moving. The old world is writing new rules. The question is whether the new rules can catch people who move faster than governments know how to follow. The fourth question is the most personal one. It belongs to you. You have spent these chapters inside a conversation that most people never have honestly. A conversation about money and fairness and safety and what we owe the societies that shaped us before we became successful enough to leave them. You met a teacher in Birmingham buying supplies with her own salary. You met a man who gave £15 million before he made his. Decision. You watched a city build itself into a promise and then watched that. Promise shake on a warm February night when nobody was expecting it. There is no verdict here. There was never going to be one. There is only the space between two true things that do not fit. Comfortably together, the classroom and the terrace, the teacher and the jet. The country that needs the money and the person who decided legally and carefully and without breaking a single rule to keep it. That space is where the real world lives. Not in headlines, not in political speeches, not in the word betrayal. When the honest word is loss, here, in this uncomfortable, unresolved, entirely human space, Dubai is still there. The towers are still rising. New ones. Always new ones. The metro. Still arrives at the time it says it will arrive. The sun still appears on mornings when half the world is buried under clouds that have forgotten how to lift. And every day, somewhere in the world, a successful person sits down with a cup of coffee and a laptop and begins reading about a country with no income tax and a 10-year visa and a city that promises with the particular confidence of a place that has delivered on that. Promise before that your future is safe here. They do the calculation, they look at the number, they book a flight. The list grows longer. The questions grow louder. And the story that began with a letter from the Italian government and a man named Marco sitting at a kitchen table with cold coffee is still being written. Today, tomorrow, by people who looked at the rules of the world they were born into, found them wanting, and quietly, legally, permanently chose. Different ones. The door is still open, and the line outside it has never been longer.
And that was the end of the video, and that was the end of the story. Of course, I hope you enjoyed listening to the story. I hope you have learned a few words, a few maybe more or new vocabulary to you related to taxes, to money, to tax havens. And of course, I hope you maybe noticed some of the grammatical structures, new grammatical structures from our video. And I hope in general you enjoyed listening to this story. Of course, I would love to end now with the question that I promised in the beginning, which is, we listen to the story of Marco. Marco is an Italian who escaped Italy or maybe traveled from Italy and went to Dubai to pay no taxes, because in Italy there are a lot of high taxes. But that means that he was not contributing to the economy of his country, Italy. Other people, maybe teachers, maybe even doctors, maybe housewives in Italy were not benefiting from the work that Marco was doing, and were not benefiting from the money that was being made. So do you think that's fair? So this is the question. Is it fair for people to escape their countries, to go to Dubai to pay zero taxes? And what do you think about that, especially in the current events and the current situation of things? That was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. A kind reminder to like this video, maybe subscribe if you haven't yet, and of course share with this video with anyone you think will benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching. We meet again in another story, in another video.